Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say today we have Rebecca, who's a freelance social media and marketing manager. Rebecca, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show, Tom.
You're very welcome. Rebecca, we always start off the same. Can you tell us all a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a freelance social media marketing manager, like you mentioned there, and I work under my own brand, which is called Little Wren Brands or littlewrenbrands.ie, just to get the plug-in. I work with small to medium businesses here in Ireland and occasionally overseas, and my goal with them is to improve their branding and their marketing, and that's largely done through digital. Just a bit of background, I suppose. And I love to tell people this, I think it's important. I came to marketing and digital, like many people, kind of a winding path, like through the back door, as it were. I didn't come with a marketing degree or a master's in business or anything like that. I studied sculpture, which is completely useless in this line of work, but it was fun to do. And, I kind of, when I came to Dublin, which was 17 years ago, I didn't know what I wanted to do career-wise. I'd been traveling, I was teaching English, and then I landed in Ireland, and I started working as a receptionist in a marketing agency. And I was really, I was kind of blown away. I was very intimidated because there were people working there who were around my age and they had degrees and masters and they knew what they were doing and they had a career plan. And I was just like sat in the reception going, oh my God, have I missed something? Um, but then, I kind of started to focus on things I could learn, and I picked up skills as I went in that job and other jobs. Um, kind of, little kind of things here and there. Like I worked for a newspaper. I learned about PR and media from there, and then I worked for an online business um, uh, listing company. It's defunct now, so I won't name it. And I learned about digital there, and because it was the start of kind of social media for business, and that was 2008, years ago now. Then I got my kind of break. Someone said to me, "Do you think you could do this?" I said yes, and that's where it all started. That was about, I would say 13 years ago, maybe a bit more.
Wow.
Yeah, so since then I've spent 10 years in-house with part of that was, or most of that actually was with a large charity here in Dublin, and then with a recruitment agency. And then like many people, like I'm a mum, so I had to make a choice. I want to be at the school gates for my little girl, so I chose freelancing then. Been doing that ever since.
That's brilliant. And what would you see as your main strength in digital nowadays, Rebecca?
Yeah, absolutely. So like through my experience, my career to date, like it's been so varied. And then when I decided to go freelance, I had to kind of get to the core of like what is my strength. So what I found was, at first I thought it was writing, and I still think it's writing. Like that is something I'd like to think I'm good at. Um, um, but mostly what my focus is now and what I'm being asked to do by clients is organic social media, because I seem to have a knack for that. Helping clients get tangible results from that. So that's where my focus is at the moment, is organic social media.
Brilliant. And obviously you have different clients, different social media strategies, clearly.
Yeah.
Can you give us any tips, and do you identify different tones of voices when you're doing organic content? Do you create like a social brand guidelines from the off? Is that tell us a little bit more about your process there?
Yes, that's a good question actually, because I start with that with all clients. So I start with if they don't have a set brand already, if they haven't established that themselves, I'll start working with them on, what is your brand? What should it look like? What should it sound like? What is your tone of voice? And I'll create different versions of the same pieces of copy, whether that's like a graphic or it's written copy, just so they can kind of read it back and go, oh no, that doesn't sound like us. That doesn't look like I think we should look like. And then from there, it's very much a collaborative approach with the client of, to get it to that point where they see themselves in the content that I'm producing for them. From then, we'll make a strategy for based on where is their audience, the old classic, who is your audience, where is your audience, because you will find with small businesses, which is mainly what I work for, sometimes there's that kind of mentality of, well, everyone's my customer. It's like, well, they're actually not. You do have a particular customer, so let's find them. And then because it's a small business, there's a kind of rather than being on every social media platform out there, which might be their kind of go-to, they might be like, let's get on TikTok and Instagram and Pinterest and just where everybody is. I try and kind of work with them and pass on my skills to say, well, look, your customers are these customers, and I know that these kind of people are using, say, LinkedIn, for example. So let's just focus on that for now and see will we grow it later. So there's a bit of learning and planning to start with. That would be the start. I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop.
No, and that was brilliant. And just to kind of tie this up there, in terms of your results side of things, is there anything anyone might be listening and trying to improve themselves in social media right now? Is there anything that you feel would currently be really good advice in social content, especially for organic, that is working really well on certain platforms? Anything you want to share there?
Yeah, well, the number one piece of advice, like it's old advice, but it's still true, is you have to measure. Because you can be producing the most wonderful looking content and really fancy videos, but if no one's watching them and if you're not seeing any kind of impact on your business, then it's pointless. So you have to be measuring. So like, don't skip the measuring. You do have time to look at the insights. You do have time to check the analytics. Make it a habit. That's, I guess, number one. And then in terms of what's working, it's knowing the right social media platform, and it seems like really basic advice, but don't assume that your client or your employer knows this. Do advocate for the right channel. So for example, and I know you've had a recruitment marketer on before, who's touched on this, like LinkedIn for recruitment is perfect. Like it just makes the most sense. And also business to business, like LinkedIn is changing. It used to be, and I hope they'll excuse me saying this, it used to be quite stuffy. It used to be quite like corporate-y and what have you, but now there are different communities on there that are separating themselves. So it's really, that's one to look into as well. It's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, so don't go on there with the same content as you'd use in those platforms, but it is changing. There is a softer side to it now, which is worth keeping an eye on.
And to kind of add on to that, is there any particular softwares that you use that you swear by that really enhances your work for your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're blessed right now as marketers because there's so many options for free and paid tools that'll help. What I use on a daily basis, I use Canva and Grammarly. I would use Photoshop in the past, and Photoshop does have its place and it's brilliant, but Canva is great for anyone working with a low budget or even just doesn't want to learn Photoshop because it's not for everyone. So Canva is an absolute must. Grammarly, not just for your spell check, but it also checks for plagiarism, which can be accidental. So it's a really good tool for that. Both of those have free versions as well. And then Clipchamp is one I'd use weekly, which is a video editing tool. It's really easy to use. It's intuitive. It's brilliant. And then there are lots of analytics tools which people know about, like Google Analytics. Should never be overlooked. It's great for so many things. Ubersuggest for keywords, and Readable. If you're I create a lot of blog content for different clients. Readable just gives you kind of a second pair of eyes, as it were. So they're all great tools.
Is there any particular areas you're looking to upskill into, Rebecca, and why?
Yeah, definitely. I think doing what we do, especially with digital marketing, like it's always evolving. You have to keep upskilling. So yeah, it's kind of constant, and staying on top of SEO best practices, that's nearly constant upskilling in itself. But right now I'm noticing that there is a growing interest in using TikTok for brands. So that's where I'll be focusing on my upskilling, because it's not something I've done for brands yet. Um, of course, there were early adopters, brands who took to TikTok like ducks to water, and they're doing a great job. But now there's a wider business audience, and they're definitely showing an interest of how they can get involved. So I want to have the right answers for them. That's where I'm at.
Really well said. And recently we had, you know, really interesting kind of either lawyers or solicitors or accountants and stuff starting to build really strong presence in TikTok by just using their content and the knowledge they have. So it does feel like, I suppose I'm just agreeing with the point you're saying of businesses are starting to grow a lot more on TikTok and sharing their knowledge, which probably hasn't successfully been done on the other platforms as
Yeah,
much.
I think so. I totally agree. The knowledge thing is really key there because, um, like the solicitors, there's one in particular. Oh, it's an American firm. I can't think of the name, but the logo is a pink flamingo anyway, and it's a female-based solicitors firm, and their content is literally like they explain the most complicated things in a TikTok video. You wouldn't get that anywhere else. So I
No,
think it's great. I think it's great for the attention spans that people have right now, is to get across that message of this works because this is what you need to know about this. People will watch it.
yeah, you're spot on, and I do think kudos to those businesses because we've kind of been through this transition enough times now with, starting off with maybe your Bebo or something way back, and then transition into your Facebook and obviously Instagram. That Instagram really took off a good few years back, and now we've got to the kind of TikTok moment where it does seem like businesses have learned from the times before. They have the knowledge, they've had their skills base, but they now know how to produce content in a way that could explode them quite quickly. So it's just really interesting that we've got to that stage of social media and the wider audience understanding how to use the platform and how to create content in the right
Yeah, I
way.
think it can be intimidating for some brands because it does look like a bunch of people dancing. Um, if you just glance on it quickly, but if you dig deeper, there are relevant ways of doing it. So I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And looking at the digital industry as a whole, Rebecca, is there anything that really excites you that might be coming in the future?
Yeah, so I guess for me, it's community that I'm really interested in. It's one of the reasons I like supporting and working with small businesses and startups because they're right there in local communities. They're by having businesses there, they're creating hubs, they're creating experiences. They're creating jobs. They're great for the economy. But then that interesting community extends online as well because I think when a brand gets their target audience right, that audience turns into a community online, which is really powerful. You only
Yeah.
need to look. I was trying to think of an example earlier that people would know. If you look at brands that pre-COVID were all kind of in-person, um, brands like Slimming World, for example, which everyone's probably heard of, and Weight Watchers is probably in the same boat. They were forced online during the pandemic, and now they have these thriving, absolutely thriving Facebook communities where their brand is just growing and growing and growing. I think that's brilliant. And I have one particular client who works with a kind of niche patient group, if you like. They're people who suffer from a skin disease called hidradenitis suppurativa, which is called HS for short because it's a total mouthful. Um, and they have a massive, massive digital community, not just for this company, which has its own community, but the patient community in itself, online, helping each other, they're supporting each other, and it's all digital. And these are people who'd find, like in reality, they find it hard to meet up in person from a physical and a mental kind of point of view. So I'm excited because seeing how the digital industry can support and connect communities whilst also helping businesses grow and helping brands grow, like that's something to be excited about. It's connecting real people and real communities with business and kind of making it a little more, what's the word, connected, I guess.
Really well said. Yeah, brilliant. And Rebecca, we always ask this question to wrap up the show, which is a question that tries to understand a little bit about you. And the question is, if you could bottle up one personality trait that you have that you feel you could pass on to others, what would it be?
Okay. This is like a trick question, but I've thought long and hard about it, Tom. So something I used to think was a weakness is that I'm impulsively helpful. It's like if you have a problem and I know about it, I want to help you. I just can't help myself. Um, I can't stop myself from doing that. So I've turned that from something that I thought was a weakness. It's become more of a philosophy of sharing now. Like I want to, and I'm happy to share what I know because I got into a position where I can run my own business because people helped me out in my career. People pointed me in the direction. People gave me skills, taught me their skills, and I want to pass that on. So, helpfulness, I guess, that kind of open source sharing kind of approach to marketing, digital marketing, PR, whatever I know. Like if people want that information, they can just ask me and I'm happy to share it.
That's really well said and very nice of you. Rebecca, that's it. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you loved being part of it, and I'm sure everyone listening has loved hearing what you had to say.
Oh, thanks so much, Tom. I really appreciate it.